Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game Over Ottawa. So happy to be joining everybody on the post-game show. I've wanted to hop on the Ottawa channel all season long. Definitely unfortunate way for that game to end. There's nothing more exciting than playoff overtime. There really isn't. Oh, let me mute that. No background audio. And it's just unfortunate. They get your hopes up. Really, I thought that the Senators control play so well. This does not look like a team that is, for the most part, completely inexperienced in the playoffs. Most of this core, this is their first playoff series against a team that has been here for many, many years in a row. And tonight just couldn't get it done, despite some really strong play, especially 5-on-5. Some huge goals. The Gaudette tip to send that to overtime really felt like it might be kind of a momentum shifter for the Senators, but at the end of the day, it is the Leafs who get the overtime winner thanks to Max Domi of all people, who a nice goal if you want to look at it from a Leafs perspective, and if you want to look at it from a Senators perspective, really just one that you can't have give up. Some awful defending from both Cousins and Batherson on that play. You really want either one of those guys to lock up their man. But overall, we'll do a quick game recap to start it before getting a little bit more in depth. So 3-2, the final score for the Toronto Maple Leafs in overtime was the final. And I mean, much closer than game one, but it does now mean the Senators down 0-2 in the series while heading back to the CTC. So certainly still, anyone's series, but down 2-0, you have to admit to yourself that this has gotten a lot harder now for Ottawa. This is going to be a really, really tough challenge. They say it ain't over till you lose at home, but at the same time, when you're down as the lower seed in the series, you got to win at least once on away ice, and it really seemed like tonight was going to be the night. So, started off rough. I mean, that first period was pretty abysmal for the Senators, even though they did come out of it out shooting the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was the Leafs that generated more chances and indeed had 2 goals. Yet again, that terrifying Toronto power play gets to work on the second goal from John Tavares. I mean, that's just their top-end talent taking over right there with Marner and Matthews getting the assists. And the first goal from Riley as well. Both very similar goals where it's just greasy net front goals that get you ahead. But who am I to critique? Because that's exactly how the Senators got their next one off Brady Tkachuk. Playing the puck towards the net, goes in off the skate of Leafs defenseman Brandon Carlo before making its way to the back of the net. So a lot of puck luck on the Sens' first goal. And then finally, the hockey god, Adam Gaudette, tipping home a point shot from Tyler Kleven to tie that one up relatively late in the third period, just over 5 minutes to go. So again, overall, you look at the shot clock, 28-21, and a lot of that coming in overtime and the first period for Toronto. The Senators held the Leafs to just 2 shots in the second period, and just a few more than that in the third. So really doing a great job at controlling play. But the issue is despite the fact Ottawa really doing a good job at getting the higher quantity of chances, it was the Leafs that were burying them at just so much more of an efficient rate. And the goal that I really want to start in breaking down was this overtime goal, because, overtime, bit of a coin flip, 1 goal to win it all, right? But that was not one that you want to see from Max Domi, as he gets that drop pass from Benoit. And I mean, even the drop pass could have very easily been picked off by the man right there, who was Dylan Cousins, who was just out of reach to pick it off from Max Domi. But I think you do want to see him playing higher up there and taking his man. But then the player I think I've really got a fault for that overtime goal was Drake Batherson, who just does a complete flyby on Domi. I mean, he looks like he tries to kind of poke at the puck and try to knock it off his stick, but just take your man there, tie him up, don't let him get the shot away. And instead, Domi manages to just put on one move to get around Batherson, who, as I said, was just flying right by, gets himself into a clean shooting position. And credit where it's due, absolute top corner bullet by Max Domi. A really nice finish. And I really thought Max Domi was one of the Leafs' better players tonight. He was kind of a real play driver for that team, getting into the dirty areas, getting things done where he needed to, and the Senators just didn't have enough guys who were able to really contribute to playmaking and push plays forward. So many opportunities, but of course, I think anyone who watched that game, a big story has to be just how inaccurate the Senators' shooting was. I mean, you have 7 more shots than the Leafs at the end of the game, but I would be very interested to know the shot attempts, which I don't immediately have right here. one stat that immediately does kind of jump off the page was I was having to watch the American broadcast as the Canadian broadcast wasn't working for me, and halfway through the third, the Senators had 12 shot attempts, 0 shots on goal. And I mean, it's stats like that, especially in the playoffs, really just make or break a team. I mean, 12 shot attempts, even with how much the Leafs were blocking, and I do want to get to that in a second, you have to be able to get more rubber on target right there, because it's not like those were all being blocked. There were so many shots going high, so many shots going wide. Just really unfortunate for Ottawa in a game where it felt like they were struggling to generate chances, but they were still generating more than they were conceding. To have their rangefinders be off with their shooters to that degree really nullifies just how many more chances you are able to generate. But if you want to take a look at another massive stat from the game, it has to be blocked shots. The Senators have 6 blocked shots after that game. Toronto Maple Leafs, 32. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, say what you will about potentially it being a home game, and you know what they say about stats sometimes being increased for the home team. There's no question that the Leafs were blocking shots at an incredible clip, much more efficient than the Sens, and that was a big reason why. Anthony Stolarz as well, just making things so tough, and overall it felt like the Senators were generating so many chances, but by the time the puck actually gets to the net, so few chances of those actually, get followed up upon, between the shots blocked, not hitting the target, or Stolarz making a great save. Just felt like kind of running into a brick wall time and time again for Ottawa. Have to find ways to start a little bit hotter as well. That first period, not what you want to see from Ottawa. Found themselves in the back foot early and were able to end the period up on the shot clock. But I mean, a large portion of that being that they did get the first power play of the game in that period and got a bit of momentum off that, but were unable to score on it and get it back there. So I think if I was to make one more kind of overarching point about the series through 2 games out of a potential 7, it would have to be the special teams. It does not even look like it's in the same world. Not even the same league as each other right now. Toronto's power play looks like a threat to score every single time it gets out there. And the Senators, I mean, they had a few chances, I thought, especially on the first power play. But then outside of the one they scored on, not a whole lot to speak of for any of them. And even the one they scored on, again, I mean, insanely lucky bounce off the defender's left skate. And I'm surprised that pass even had enough power to get deflected in, just given that it's kind of a weak pass through the blue paint that clips Carlo. And so other than that, I mean, the Leafs power play is at, I believe, 4 for 8 right now, or 4 for 7. Just such an effective power play. 5 forwards and really just the top end talent able to take over for Toronto in these games so far. So that's kind of my overall recap and thoughts of the game right there. Senators doing a good job of playing their game, especially in the second and third, but just the chances being converted upon at a really pathetic clip. I think the amount that they're able to generate is great and is enough to win. But when your rangefinder's that far off on the shots and when Toronto is blocking that much, you have to find ways to get pucks through to Anthony Stolarz. Don't get me wrong, Stolarz made some killer saves that likely kept the Leafs in it. But you know what? This game, the Sens got the same from Ullmark. I mean, that save late in the third absolutely bailed out the team. And he has given this team enough to feel comfortable and saying, like, hey, this is our guy. We can win with him. I did not fault Ullmark at all for that second game. So, yeah, overall, just the Senators, I really like their game, and it feels like if they can keep at it and actually get shots to the net, that's really all I need to see changed from them. Now, to look into a bit more specific here, I did like the call to bring in Cousins for Highmore. I hadn't liked what Highmore brought in the first game we saw, and I think that Nick Cousins is just so much more of a playoff player. Say what you will about maybe the skill not necessarily being there. I thought he looked hand over fist better than Matthew Highmore did, so I certainly thought that's a change that worked out. Quick hydration break. But other than that, not a whole lot of difference for the Senators in this second game. One thing I've got to say, Jake Sanderson's such a talented player. Again, I was having to watch the American broadcast, and they were really hyping him up all game, and you can see why. his ability to, I mean, just about do everything, but primarily his transitional game is so fluid. It's so impressive to watch him getting the puck from his own end to either the forwards or just carrying it up ice himself. And then, of course, the way he handles it in the offensive zone. I mean, he is going to be an elite defenseman in this league for a long time to come. I think that his contract, a few people kind of balked when it was signed. It is just going to be such a good ticket in even just a few years' time. That contract is going to be one of the best in the league for a defenseman, in my opinion. So he continues to impress me. However, the guy that should be challenging him for the spot of best defenseman on this team, that line of Thomas Chabot and Nick Jensen, again, not really looking great tonight, at least by my eye test. Lots of times where the Leafs' best chances were coming when it was those two that were on the ice. And, they'll get back into the swing of things. I'm not too concerned about that pairing of two, experienced defenders that have kind of been there, done that. But overall, again, wasn't too impressed with the Chabot-Jensen pairing. And sure enough, if you take a look, again, you can put stock into post-game analytics. You can not put stock into analytics. But if you want to look at the analytics, Thomas Chabot with the worst game score of the night, Nick Jensen the third worst. And it was Drake Batherson who I was harping upon, who ends up second worst there. And I mean, you just need those guys to be a little bit better. The guys that are kind of further up your lineup. Sure, the depth is kind of right in the middle of that chart. It's maybe what you expect them to be a little bit worse. But when you've got your kind of star players at the bottom of the game cards, that's not what you want to be seeing. So I do wonder if we see Travis Green throwing the lines in a blender a little bit. We saw it halfway through the game. He was mixing up the forward lines, especially the bottom six. But I wonder what we see about defensive pairings. The thing is with defensive pairings is, of course, so much goes into chemistry, goes into knowing how your partner plays. So it is a big risk to switch up the defensive core. But just when you've got a top pairing that is not playing particularly well, it's very detrimental to the team, especially given how many minutes you need guys like Chabot and Jensen to be able to eat on a regular basis, and you don't feel comfortable playing them against the Toronto Maple Leafs top guys. I mean, that's tough, and we'll get into the Maple Leaf side of things in the second period. I kind of want to keep it Sens focused for that one. The face-off dot also being a little bit of a concern. Not too bad, 46.6%, but I definitely think that the Leafs have the advantage down the middle, and that has been reflected in the face-off dot so far. Another big stat, which reflects well for Ottawa, but again, you're down 0-2 at this point. You need results, not just stats, is the hits, 44-25. I mean, Ottawa's playing a physical game, and I think over a 7-game series, it'll start to take its toll on the Leafs, but that's if you can get it to go to 7. I mean, right now, this top-end talent of Toronto is trying to put this one away, and, they've done that through 2 games, so we'll see how it goes down on Thursday. Of course, being back on home ice, if you can win both your home games and head back to Toronto tied at 2, you feel all right about that series, but now, coming into this series, I think no one would deny the pressure was on Toronto. You've got your kind of younger sibling dynamic in the Ottawa Senators in the Battle of Ontario. And, of course, you're the team that chokes in the playoffs every year. So the pressure was really on Toronto. But I think there's no question that now with the 2-0 series lead, at least in this series, the pressure is now shifted towards Ottawa, heading to home ice, heading to the CTC. I mean, Game 3, there's no question this is a must-win for Ottawa. Absolutely no question. They lose Game 3, you can wrap the series up with a bow. They might be able to force 4 or 5 games, but I do not see Ottawa making a full 3-0 comeback against the Leafs. So you really do need to come away with this upcoming Game 3 in Ottawa. So we'll see if they are able to do that. I really need to see a better start from the Senators. I think that the second and third period was great. Even overtime, I don't want to say it was great by the Sens, because most of my notes here are just the Leafs with pretty unforced errors. I mean, Simon Benoit with a bad icing right off the rip. Then you have Anthony Stolarz freezing the puck when there's no one around him. Both of those leading to 3 offensive zone faceoffs for the Senators. And then the next note I have after that is the Domi winner. So I can't even necessarily give the Sens any credit in overtime. But the second and third period, especially the second period, was what you wanted to see. I mean, I would argue that second period from Ottawa was one of the best periods we've seen them have this season. They allowed just 2 shots on goal from the Toronto Maple Leafs. 2. Next to nothing. while really controlling play. But I mean, say what you will, the Toronto Maple Leafs, while getting absolutely dominated for 20 minutes, only conceded 1 goal, and that goal was on the power play. So all the possession in the world doesn't matter when the Senators aren't able to bury their chances. So I think it's going to be another game where I haven't looked at the meter that everyone always posts on Twitter, the deserve to win-o meter. I mean, after game 1, the Sens were actually up on that despite losing 6-2. And now, I guarantee the Sens will be up again, but it doesn't matter. This is the time of the year where you don't need analytics. You don't need, oh, we looked great, we'll look better next game. You need results. And so tonight, the result just wasn't there for Ottawa in another unfortunate game that can be summarized by, I think, a pretty bad start. I mean, if you erase that first 10 minutes, it's a 2-0 Ottawa win. So you just got to find the ways to keep them off the score sheet early. And I think getting the first goal of Game 3 is going to be absolutely massive. They've allowed it to the Leafs both games now, and you know, you've got to tidy that up. So we'll see how the Sens are able to come out in Game 3, but definitely not what you wanted to see here after 2 games being down by 2. So we'll head now to the second period here. Again, I'd like to thank Game Over Ottawa for having me on. I'm happy to fill in last moment here. I am a bit of a Sens fan. I, of course, am Zach Clarke. I'm from Game Over Vancouver, but I love to happen for the Sens. They were kind of my first team before Vancouver, so very happy to be covering them with you guys here. Now, I did want to look a little bit at the Toronto Maple Leafs because, of course, it takes 2 to tango. They're the opponent, and aside from being up significantly in the face-off dot through 2 games, I think that's been an underrated storyline. Is the Senators have had more possession despite losing the face-off. So if you can think about just even going 50% in the draw, how much more possession time that's going to lead to for Ottawa. As after the game, Ottawa had, or at the end of regulation at least, the Ottawa Senators had 4 more minutes of offensive zone possession. 14-10. That is a gigantic differential there for Ottawa. But despite that, still unable to actually make the most of that heading forward. And I think that the Leafs have gotten a lot from their defense score. I think that the Leafs finally this year have a lot that they haven't had in previous seasons. I will say that I did not pick the Leafs to win this series, partially because I'm biased, I'll freely admit it, and partially because in years gone by, it's been the same storyline for the Leafs. The core 4 is amazing, but they're not good enough to get it done, and they don't have enough defense or goaltending to bail them out. Well, now we see what the Leafs look like when they are actually getting defense and goaltending. For my money, Morgan Rielly was probably the best player on the ice tonight. I mean, aside from having the opening goal of the game, I mean, he was absolutely stalwart in his own end. He was shut down defenseman that scored the first goal. I mean, he really did a lot for them. OEL had some bad giveaways, but he had some good touches as well. Chris Tanev is Chris Tanev. You know exactly what you're getting from him. Again, the Leafs had 32 shot blocks tonight, and I'll be willing to bet you any sum of money you name that Chris Tanev was a pretty big culprit in that. So I think that the Senators probably beat, any of the Leafs gone by. The previous iterations of Leafs teams that we've seen with those defensive and goaltending struggles, but this does feel through 2 games like just a little bit different of a Leafs team. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. I still think that the winner of this series is going to get trounced by the winner of the Battle of Florida. But this is a Leafs team that is the best we've seen it in the Marner and Matthews era, at least so far through 2 games, because they're actually getting average defending and well above average goaltending. I mean, Anthony Stolarz, I think the Senators really struggled to create chances with all the missed shots in the third period. But in the first and second period, those shots were on goal, and they were getting robbed. Stolarz had answers for just about everything. And it's hard to fault Ottawa for that when Stolarz just really looking like the better goaltender. And I don't even mean that as a knock to Linus Ullmark. I mean, Ullmark, he had some great saves. Again, that one late in the third kept the Sens in it and forced it to overtime. But Anthony Stolarz has still been the better goaltender in this series so far, and that's unfortunate coming from, I don't want to say a no-name goaltender, but seriously, a backup who plays maybe 20 games in the NHL and gets time in the AHL to now being a quality NHL starter in the playoffs. I mean, it's great to see for Stolarz, but for Ottawa, they wish he would regress a little. But yeah, overall, that and a lot of the top-end talent for Ottawa. I mean, all 4 of the core 4 were 2nd through 5th, respectively, for for the game cards, and all four having major impacts on the ice. I thought there was a couple times where you noticed Tavares' lack of speed in one-on-one puck battles, but I mean, the core force talent is just so noticeable every time they're out there. They're giving trouble to the Senators in the offensive end. So next thing that I wanted to talk about, going back to kind of the overall view of the series, has been Travis Green. Because, of course, this is Travis Green's first year behind the bench of the Ottawa Senators. So if they don't make it too far, I don't think that there's going to be too much panic in Ottawa. They're going to have another shot at this next year, at least I feel. I've really liked the system. I really have. I think that the Senators are doing a great job at bouncing back. I mean, I've lamented on this team for not starting on time. Again, not a great first period, but that second period was exactly what you need to see from Ottawa. I mean, that's bounced back to a T right there. You go from being the worst team on the ice to dominating the Leafs in the second frame of play. I don't think there's any other word for it. His defensive systems are looking pretty solid, but it's his offensive systems that I really like. I mean, the Leafs are struggling so hard to get the puck out of their own end. The amount of possession that Ottawa had, again, 4 minutes more than the Leafs in the offensive end, I think was largely due to just how hard the Leafs are struggling to get that out. And I think it's a large part because of Travis Green's systems. The defenders play so close to the boards on the point that when the Leafs try to clear it out along the glass, which is where they've been trying to go most of the time, the Senators defenders were able to get there and keep it in. So again, it's just so tough because I've liked what I've seen from Ottawa, but we are so no longer at the stage of being okay with, oh, I like what I see. I mean, this is the time of year where you need results, and that's all that matters. You can be the better team for 59 minutes, and if the other team gets to win, that's all you care about. So, you know, overall, I would like to see Ottawa take just that little bit of a step forward next game. I think that if they can play I know if they play a full 60 minutes, how they played the second period tonight, not a snowball's chance in hell they lose another game. That second period was, again, one of the best periods we've seen from Ottawa this season. Just absolutely dominant, moving the puck around. Passes are tape to tape. Toronto was floundering. They looked lost. Again, 2 shots in 20 minutes. But you were just unable to get that kind of version consistently. And I really do feel like we kind of saw 3 different Ottawa Senators teams tonight. I mean, that first period team that was not ready to play. They were ready to play regular season hockey, and Toronto made them pay for it. Then the second period, that was playoff Ottawa. That was what we need to see from this team in the postseason. And then the third period let off the gas a little bit, but I can't even fault them for the third because, again, I thought they were the better team in the third. But unfortunately, yeah, in overtime, the overtime was where I was really disappointed by Ottawa. I did not think that there was any major scoring opportunities, despite, again, the sheer number of unforced errors by the Leafs. That was a quick overtime, just 3 minutes and 10 seconds. And in that 3 minutes and 10 seconds, they had 2 unforced errors that led to offensive zone faceoffs for Ottawa. And I mean, you know, the teams that win cups are the teams that bury other teams for their errors. They're the teams that just do not let mistakes go unpunished. And tonight was a game of Ottawa letting too many mistakes go unpunished. So, unfortunate. I mean, again, you watch these hockey games and you can talk yourself into Ottawa winning this series. I still can talk myself into Ottawa winning this series. But again, it's all on next game, 2 days' time. Same time of day, puck drop, and it is just going to be all or nothing for Ottawa. Do or die at the CTC. I can't wait to see what the crowd looks like for that one. I think that's just going to be absolutely electric out there. They've done their best to try to not let Toronto Maple Leaf fans into the building. I know that they've done a lot to restrict teams, or restrict Toronto fans being able to get in, but yeah, we'll see. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more here about kind of home and away records. The Senators were not great away this year. In fact, I did not realize this before doing a bit of research for tonight's post-game show, that the Senators actually had a negative away record. Even by hockey standards, where they count overtime losses as just nothing, they were not even Hockey 500. They were 18, 19, and 4. So effectively 18 and 23 in the playoffs, because that extra point ain't a thing. So really not an away team for Ottawa. So, you know, when your home record is that much better than your away record, it's easy to talk yourself into thinking you've got that big advantage on home ice. But one thing I will say about Toronto is that they had a great away record as well. In fact, I believe they had a top 3 away record in the league. So Ottawa's home record was still better than Toronto's away record. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, Ottawa definitely can't beat them at home ice, but it's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. And they have to just come out absolutely buzzing. I really need to see a strong first period here, as the Leafs have scored not just the first goal, but the first and second goal both games before the season. Or series rather. Sorry, you can't go down 0-2 every game and win the series. You just can't. You have to find ways to score first, or at the very least score second and get that to 1-1. Because again, last game it was OEL and Marner getting them up 2-0 by 12 minutes into the first, and this time it was 8 minutes into the first off the sticks of Riley and Tavares. So it's tough. This definitely feels like a better year for the Leafs. All of their playoff ghosts in years gone by, their top end talent being kind of questionable, is just unquestionable right now. All of their top guys with 3 or 4 points through just 2 games. And so this is going to have to be the amount of series we've seen in years gone by where the Leafs kind of beat themselves. That's not going to happen this series. That's one thing I can say for sure, is that the Leafs are not going to collapse and beat themselves this season or series. It's going to have to be Ottawa taking over the series and winning it, for themselves, as opposed to relying on Toronto's errors if they want to come out on top in this one. So, yeah, looking forward, I'm not really sure if I would propose any lineup changes for Ottawa. I've seen people debating whether you should put Levi Merrilainen in between the pipes. I think that's crazy. I really didn't think that there was any goals in Game 1 that you need Allmark to have. I think there's some that you could point at that you say, hey, we want you to have this, and that's fair. But he didn't give up any terrible ones. And I think it's so unfair to say that he did. So I think you run back Allmark. The other thing, of course, with Levi Merrilainen is that, you're a rookie in this league. You want to really throw into the fires of a Game 3 or a Game 4 in the playoffs. Sure. You know what? If the Senators lose Game 3, I think you could maybe go to Merrilainen for Game 4. You could just hope for a miracle, because goaltenders are basically just magic beans. They might sprout into something incredible, or they'll be relatively average. Maybe Merrilainen can pull a miracle out of his you-know-what for 4 games. So maybe if you lose Game 3, but I don't think you consider a goaltending change at all heading into Game 3 on home ice here. Other than that, again, I wouldn't propose any lineup changes. I thought the team looked much better with Matthew Highmore without Matthew Highmore, with Nick Cousins in to replace Highmore. I definitely thought that those bottom lines looked a little bit better, because you need the snarl. And that's no disrespect to Highmore, but Cousins is one of the biggest rats in the league. He's kind of known for having that reputation. That's what he does. That's why you brought him into the Senators organization. So you got to bring him in and do that. It's kind of like why the Toronto Maple Leafs have Ryan Reeves, but Nick Cousins is just that little bit better, where you feel okay having him on the ice, where the Ryan Reeves is just not even good enough to play most nights. So the only lineup changes I would consider is potentially switching around the lines. Now, I love Claude Giroux. I do. But I have not been impressed with him for probably the whole bottom half of this season. I think that he's starting to show his age, and that's understandable. He's getting up there, and most hockey players fall off. You can't all be Gordie Howe. You can't all be Alex Ovechkin, where you play until you're 40 and you look like you did when you were 20. I think he's starting to show signs of age, and I would not hate him getting demoted and maybe Zetterlund getting promoted. Zetterlund's looked dangerous, although I'll say this. I've harped on Ottawa early on the show for being unable to hit the net. I think he's been one of the biggest culprits of being unable to hit the net. But I thought everything else about his game I've really liked. So I would consider maybe swapping Giroux and Zetterlund in the lineup, but keeping Giroux's spot on power play 1 probably, because the power play, again, you want it to be getting at a higher clip, but at the same time, they had some good looks tonight. So I think you maybe keep G on power play 1, but maybe consider moving Zetterlund up. And then that way the ice time balances out a little bit more. You're giving the kind of tired vet a little bit less ice time 5-on-5, but giving him time to kind of work his magic on power play 1. When someone young and speedy like Zetterlund gets a little bit more time to shine 5-on-5. So that would be kind of my potential things. And if anyone is here and listening to me, I appreciate you joining. I'd love to hear any potential changes you'd have for Ottawa or even for Toronto. I mean, obviously Toronto, I don't think is going to consider any changes. You're up 2-0 in the series. You've got really nothing to complain about so far. Maybe I shouldn't say nothing. That second and third was pretty brutal for Toronto, but you got out of it. And you made it to OT and got it done. So Max Domi looked amazing tonight. Not even just the overtime winner. He was really buzzing all night long for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we'll move on to period 3 here as we continue to discuss this series. And it is so tough to pinpoint what the Senators kind of need to do, because other than just get goals. I mean, really, I there was multiple points tonight where the broadcast said verbatim, man, the Senators can do everything but score right now. And it's just, that feels so true. The Senators were doing so much right, and they're just unable to get the puck past Anthony Stolarz. I was watching the game in a Discord call with my good pals, Liam Higgs and Maddie Buckingham. Maddie, of course, diehard Leafs fan, and so we were going at each other in the call. And I mean, it was just crazy hearing their reactions to Ottawa generating so much offense and yet so few chances that even looked dangerous. Stolarz just making it look easy. But I will say a sneaky thing for Toronto is just how hard they struggled to get it out of their own end. If that proceeds to be an issue in games 3 until the end of the series, I really think Ottawa will make them punished at some point because there were so many chances for clears where Toronto just couldn't get it done. I think that eventually Ottawa has to have some success, but just such a brutal way to go. I thought that was a game where Ottawa really could have taken that one away, and at the end of the day, just unable to get that one done. Tim Stützle, a little bit of a quiet series so far. I believe he's just at 1 secondary assist. Let me just check game 1, make sure I don't sue him for no reason. Yeah, 1 secondary assist so far for Tim Stützle, and I would just like to see him shoot a bit more. I felt like there was a few times tonight where Stützle had pretty good shooting opportunities that he let go by the wayside. We'll see how that rectifies itself over the series. I didn't necessarily think that he played badly. I just want to see him shoot more. It feels like he's kind of trying to be a bit too much of a playmaker, and sometimes it's just like, hey man, shoot the puck, If you think you can get it on net at this point, I don't think any on-net shot is a bad shot, given how much the Senators actually struggled to hit the target. I'd really love to see them being able to get it just a little bit more accurate, get that rangefinder a little bit more on target. So Stützle, I think, a bit of a culprit for being unwilling to shoot. And I'll like to see how that goes on. But I mean, overall, of course, the Sens outshot the Leafs in both games. They outshot them by 7 in the first game, and actually, funnily enough, by 7 in this game too. So 14 more shots for Ottawa between 2 games. I mean, really, that's pretty good. You're getting so many chances, and on top of that, 26 more hits in the first game, 19 more hits in the second game. You're crushing them in hits too. But the box, it doesn't matter what the box score says. It's just those big numbers up front that really matter. That's 3-2 for Toronto, despite some good things. Now, one thing I did want to praise Ottawa, because I remember tweeting out that this could end the series, was in game 1, they had 38 penalty minutes, and Toronto made them pay with, I believe, 3 power play goals. Yep, 3 power play goals. This game, just 4 minutes taken. Now, I will say, you let in a power play goal on that 4 minutes. Another night where the Toronto Maple Leafs power play is clicking at 50%. But staying out of the box to that degree was huge for Ottawa. Absolutely huge. As last time they threw away the game with penalties, this time that was definitely not a factor for Ottawa. Some really clean hockey. I thought that tonight was a lot better refereed than game 1. Game 1. It was more egregious against Ottawa, but I thought that they missed calls both ways for sure. And then tonight, the only time where I really questioned the referees tonight was that Ridley Gregg one where they got coincidentals, and I really don't understand what Ridley Gregg was supposed to do there. I know that current analyst previous player, Mark Mathot, was talking on Twitter about how he was quite baffled about how Gray got a penalty there because, I mean, that's huge. Ottawa would have they had 2 seconds left in the power play, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if it's just the netminder Stolarz getting the penalty, of course he got the other one in that play, then you have a 2-second 5-on-3. Now count the couple seconds it takes for the defender to actually get out of the box and back to the ice. If you win the faceoff, you get one good chance on a 5-on-3. So that was a big moment in the game, but I still am not comfortable faulting refereeing at all for this game, whether I felt a bit more comfortable doing it in game 1. Your penalty kill has to be better for if you're Ottawa. And outside of that one call against Ridley Greig that I was pretty baffled, I didn't think there was anything too much else. So Ryan Chevery saying, or Chevery maybe saying, Ullmark, 2 goals, 5 shots, then 2 goals, 4 shots. He's garbage in playoffs. Now, I will disagree on this one. I did not think that there was anything tonight that was Ullmark's fault. And honestly, I didn't think there was anything in game 1 that was Ullmark's fault. Now, I can agree with the fact that there's kind of 3 tiers of goals against if you're a goaltender. There's the ones that you should absolutely have. They're the saves that you make night in, night out if you're in the NHL. Then there's the ones that you could have. It's not the goaltender's fault, but you could get and you would like to get. And then there's the ones where the goaltender has no chance whatsoever. I think a lot of the goals have been that second category. I don't think there have been any against Ullmark where I've gone, oh, that's a bad goal. But I definitely have seen a few where, you know, you probably want him to have. And of course, in a 1-goal a game, goals like that make all the difference. But also, I did think that he saved quite a few tonight that were real 10-bell saves. I mean, that one late in the third, I believe it was Marner who took the final shot, might have been Nyes, where the puck comes up to the high slot off a nice drop pass, and Ullmark reaches across to make that save. I mean, that definitely makes up anything that he had in the first period. Now, I mean, it's easy to just look at the stats there, Ryan, and say that, you know, 3 goals on 21 shots isn't great. And that's fair enough, but I think you have to consider the kind of quality of shots and how the goals went in. I mean, those first 2 goals for Toronto were insane bounces from in front of the net. I mean, they're greasy goals. And I mean, goals like that are always more on the defenders for not taking up their man and taking up their sticks than they are the netminder. Now, again, I do see your point about the fact that Ullmark could have had a couple of these. I thought that more in game 1, personally, that Ullmark probably could have had a couple of those back. But even if Ullmark takes a couple back in game 1, you lose 4-2. And tonight, I thought that anything that I was skeptical on for Ullmark, he made up for in that third period. And yeah, Ryan, that's exactly what I've been saying. We definitely outplayed them. Gotta have better starts. I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's 2 games in a row where I've honestly come out feeling confident that Ottawa played better. In the first game, I mean, just so many power plays given up to Toronto. It's hard to judge a game like that. They were better 5-on-5 by all analytics. And I mean, tonight, again, just if you don't count that first 8.5 minutes, the Senators blew them out of the water. But the issue is, all 60 minutes count. And yeah, the start, just abysmal. I mean, both games, you're down 2-0 by halfway through the first period. It's just awful. You're not going to win a whole lot of playoff series like that. And now heading back to home ice, I really cannot stress that Game 3 is going to be a completely different ballgame. Not only is it now home ice, so completely different fan atmosphere, and it's a rink you're familiar with, but now I feel like the pressure is firmly on the Senators. So we're going to see how they respond to pressure. This is that time to step up, but you're down 0-2 in the series now. There's no pressure on the Leafs. I mean, they could lose the next 2 games, and you're still now heading into the final 3 with home ice advantage back at square one. So really, the pressure is on the Senators, and it's now up to them to respond. So I still like their odds. I really do. The odds are in the Leafs' favor, but I don't think that they're that much in their favor. It's been one of those series where you just look at the full 60 minutes and you feel like if the Senators can play their game, they can win. But they've really had trouble executing their game. I mean, as I said earlier on in the show, that second period from Ottawa was maybe the best period of hockey we've seen from the Senators this entire year. But it's also, how many times can you replicate a period like that over a 7-game series? So Ryan's saying the defense is so hit and miss. So when we figure it out to allow just 3 to 6 shots a period, that's the Sens hockey I'm used to. Yeah, that's completely fair enough. I think the biggest hit or miss pairing for me has been that Jensen-Shabbat pairing, where there have been times, especially offensively, where I think they've really looked like a top pairing in the NHL. But then there have been times, especially defensively, where it's been a couple big errors that have led to chances against, and you can't have your top pairing, or if you want to call the Sanderson pairing the top pairing, the second pairing, you can't have one of your top two pairings giving up as many opportunities as the Chabot-Jensen pairing has been. And I think that it's more on Jensen to me because Thomas Chabot has always been a bit more of an offensive defenseman, and I think that's all right. That's his game. You want him to be better defensively, sure, of course you do, but he's always been a bit more of an offensive defenseman. And I think that Nick Jensen kind of always been a bit more of a defensive defenseman, and he hasn't looked it so far. So I'd really like to see him kind of stepping it up, because I honestly thought that after the Chychrun-Jensen trade, I was kind of labeling it as a win-win trade, because Chychrun, immediate impact for Washington. He looked great this year, got a huge extension. But I also thought that Nick Jensen quietly looked awesome in Ottawa through the first half of the season. But, you got to wonder if he maybe got injured. And that's so funny. Ryan saying exactly what I'm saying. Nick Jensen must be battling something, because at the start of the year, this guy was lights out. Yeah, I would love to see, first 40-game Nick Jensen form back. He looked great. He was so shut down. Almost felt like a mini slave in the beginning of the year, where it was like, okay, he's not producing a whole lot offensively, but he's not giving up anything defensively, and that just has not been true so far these playoffs. So that defensive pairing of Chabot-Jensen really has to figure it out. I think Sanderson's pairing has been so noticeable, and I mean, the third defensive pairing wasn't great, but at the end of the day, they're a third defensive pairing. They're not going to look great. That's why they're the third defensive pairing. I definitely haven't seen anything too egregious from the third pairing. I'd like to keep Hamonic out of the lineup. That's definitely an ideal would be to keep him out, even though I know he's a great locker room guy. At this stage in the year, you need your best guys on the ice. So I'm so excited for Game 3. I think that if Ottawa can play like they did in the final 40 minutes, or even anywhere close to it, they've got a really, really good chance of coming out on top. But I will say, I think the most noticeable difference has been the top-end talent. I mean, Tavares, Marner, Matthews, and Nylander are taking over games in the offensive zone. They all have at least 3 points. Brady Tkachuk and especially Tim Stützle have been pretty quiet. Now, I will say, this was a much better game for Brady Tkachuk. He was invisible in Game 1, in my humble opinion. He looked a lot more noticeable out there tonight. Of course, had that goal. Bit of a fluke, was probably the flukiest goal of them all tonight. Toronto's first two were pretty fluky, but this one was really something. But hey, they all count. And again, Tkachuk a little bit more noticeable tonight, but you really got to see that top-end talent like Tkachuk and Stützle. You want them to be able to take over plays. We really, really were not seeing that. So what about Chabot, Kleven, Jensen, Maude? That would be interesting. So I guess you're saying Chabot, Kleven, second pair, Jensen, Maude, third pair. I don't hate that. I would have to check the handedness. Don't know what hand they shoot. That's completely fair. Me neither. Let me take a quick look at the line combinations from Daily Faceoff. So Sanders and Zub has been a lights out pairing. We're not touching that one. And yeah, Jensen's on the right side. So you could do Chabot, Montemapalo, Kleven, Jensen. I don't hate it. My only concern with Montemapalo is that he didn't get a lot of ice time tonight. And overall in the playoffs, he hasn't so far. And so he would need to take a lot more of a step. And I haven't disliked what I've seen from Montemapalo, but I feel like with Jensen, you at least get a baseline of like, what you're going to get. Whether I feel like Maude's a bit more of a risk. I feel like he could be better, but I also feel like he could be worse. I mean, he's been up and down this season. I don't think there's any questioning that for Sens fans. Montemapalo, he's had times where he's looked like he could sneak into the top 4, but then he's also had times where you understand why sometimes Travis Hamonic plays over him. So, don't get me wrong, I still don't want to see Travis Hamonic. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I think it is a little bit of a risk to take Jensen out of the top 4 for Montemapalo. At least on paper, that top 4 of Sanderson, Zub, Chabot, Jensen, I think that should be good enough to win the series. You just got to see more out of Chabot, Jensen. So I think that you start next game with Chabot, Jensen, and maybe if the game's not going well, you can go back and shuffle the lineups. We saw Travis Green shuffling the lineups a little bit in the second and third period, but just the forwards. It is always a bit more risky to shuffle the defensive core. So I don't hate that idea, Ryan, and we'll see if Travis Green does elect to go to that. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, no kidding. We've got a lot of the same ideas, Ryan, and I think that's I think that's fair, because I think that Sens fans watching this series are able to have a lot of the same ideas, because it has been, we're all watching the same series right now, and I think that the Senators' problems have been pretty obvious. Of just, not hitting the net on the chances they're generating. It's been a couple defensive pairings that have been bleeding. I don't think that it is a particularly complex set of problems here for Ottawa, and that's what gives me so much belief here heading into Game 3. Again, Game 3 is do or die for Ottawa. You treat Game 3 like Game 7 here, because if you lose this Game 3, you go down 0-3, I'm sorry, I am willing to call the series at that point. But you go in, you have a dominant victory over Toronto, you're right back in this. So it is all going to be on this next game. It's going to be on having a good start, and it is going to be on the top end talent. I think to be able to do a little bit more here for Ottawa, because right now, you're getting goals from guys up and down the lineup. That's what you like, but it just has not been enough scoring. I mean, 2 goals right now in each game for Ottawa. I think you've got to crack that 3, maybe even crack that 4 mark on home ice here. And I mean, Anthony Stolarz, how long can he keep up this elite play? I mean, maybe he is just this kind of goaltender now. Goaltenders take time to develop. He's 31. Maybe he's just hitting his stride now. But someone that has been a career backup now coming in and playing really, really well in the playoffs just does feel like one of those things where he's bound to give up a bad one eventually. And actually, to be fair, he gave up a bad one in Game 1. I believe it was the Batherson goal where Stolarz kind of goes to cover it and just drops it. And then lets one in. So you kind of hope for more errors like that from Stolarz. And I feel confident that Ullmark isn't going to give up anything like that, but you maybe need him to go lights out for a game. You maybe need to see Vezina Ullmark for a game, because while I think Ullmark has been good, I do not think he's been great. And that's what I will say for his play so far. Whether I do think Stolarz has been great. So I do think that the Leafs have had the goaltending differential through 2 games. So, I wouldn't say that I'm confident, Ryan, but I would say this. I am more confident than I usually am down 0-2 in a playoff series. Usually down 0-2, I'm feeling pretty nervous, but right now, I still feel like the Sens have a pretty good chance. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. So I'm going to move on to period 4 here. If anyone has any questions for me in the chat, I'd be happy to answer. I've been following the Ottawa Senators, all year long, and I haven't gotten to cover them in a professional way as much as I'd like to. As of course, I live in Vancouver. I work for Sportsnet in Vancouver, so I'm very used to covering the Canucks, not the Senators. But it was awesome getting to go out as a media guy and getting to cover one Senators game this year. It was a very interesting experience. I will say I had not been to the CTC since I was 7 years old. I forgot what an awful location it's in. We really got to move that arena back to downtown. I'd love for it to be in LeBreton Flats. But man, I was trying to get an Uber, and I did not dress for the cold weather, or at least not dress well enough for the cold weather. I had to walk like 10 minutes to get to the Uber pickup and drop-off area with little to no public transit for the CTC. Was pretty crazy. Because here in Rogers Arena, I mean, it's the heart of downtown. I get not every rink can be in the heart of downtown, but going from having 5 different buses, a C bus I can take, or getting an Uber right outside to waiting outside the CTC, that it was definitely an interesting experience. So I loved getting to go to an Ottawa game this year as a member of media, but it was definitely like, okay, let's move this rink back. So I've never been to the CTC, and I've been a fan since 1992. You live 6 hours away. No, honestly, that's fair enough. I mean, it's a pretty nice rink. I'll say that. The actual arena itself, I think, is better than Rogers Arena here in Vancouver. But the location, I was gobsmacked. I mean, it's actually like the CTC is here, and then the surrounding area is just like a few highways and a field. I mean, it was just nothing there, at least from the direction I came from, which was coming from downtown. So I would definitely like to see them get it in more downtown Ottawa for sure. So by now I'd almost be in tears. My family and friends would rub it in big time. I mean, hey, that's the best part. I got a lot of friends that are Leafs fans. I don't have too many close friends that are Ottawa fans, so I definitely hear a lot of jeering. Although I have to say, I think another reason why I right now as a Senators fan I am relatively confident is that my Leafs friends aren't confident at all. They're up 2-0 in the series and they don't feel confident, and it's that lack of confidence from them that really helps fuel mine. Just because, again, if you're watching this series as a Leafs fan, it really feels like they have gotten kind of bailed out of some of these games. It felt like they got kind of bailed out with some power plays in the first game and some stellar goaltending. And then this second game bailed out by stellar goaltending and the Senators' complete inability to hit the net. I mean, again, through the first 15 minutes of the third period, having 12 shot attempts and 0 shot on goals for the Senators is abysmal. Most of that is missing the net. Part of it is the Leafs just blocking so many shots. But I think for me, I'd like to see more greasy shots for the Senators. We're seeing a lot right now where they're trying to get it through from the blue line, and it's just not working. The Leafs are doing such a great job at blocking shots, and I mean, I don't want to give the Leafs any credit, but at a certain point you have to. They're doing a great job of getting into the shooting lanes, and so I think I'd like to see just a little bit more getting it through that top guy, where you've got, those 1 or 2 guys hanging up just inside the blue line, getting ready to block those shots. If you can just get it through them, I'm happy. But it's the amount of high up shot blocks where it's so easy to then get the clear out. If it's getting blocked right in front of the net, then that's a 50-50 puck battle. And honestly, the Sens have been winning a lot of 50-50 puck battles. So that's been my kind of analysis of the series so far. I still think the Senators have a pretty good opportunity here. But, you're going to have to pick it up at a certain point. So I am going to start to wrap it up as I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Final score 3-2 for the Leafs. The next game will be in 2 days, Thursday. You can catch that one on ESPN2 or Sportsnet. And I'm not sure if this one's also on CBC. We've seen a few games there, but I'm not confident about that. So I shan't say either direction. Overall, yeah, Senators looking all right through 2 games. But again, you're at the stage of the season where looks don't matter. It is all about results. And the results not there here for Ottawa so far through 2 games. They'll look to get it done on Thursday, and they will need to get it done on Thursday. For now, I shall bid everyone adieu. Thank you for watching. Appreciate all the comments. Thank you to Ryan for really helping fill the chat there. And yeah, we'll see if Ottawa can get it done. I really hope they can. Ryan's saying, I feel we can come back, but at the same time, it's not the OHL. It's hard to come back 2-0 in the NHL. I completely agree with you, man. It is tough to come down 2-0, but at the same time, you've got to stretch of 2 games here. You got to win. Honestly, you got to win both of these. I really feel like you got to win both of these. So we'll see how Ottawa performs on the CTC. I could not be more excited for that. Thanks again to Game Over Ottawa for having me on. I have been Zach Clarke. You can find me on Twitter at Zach Clarke PXP. And thank you so much for tuning in. I shall sign off now, and we will rejoin you here at Game Over Ottawa after the game. Game 3 up next in this series between Toronto and Ottawa. They've got a 2-0 lead, and we'll rejoin you after the final whistle on Game Over